probably no other word that has passed through culture that is more confusing than the word church. Because if you were to ask 5 people on a poll, what does church mean? And some people say the place you go, the place you pay your tithe, the place you bury your loved ones, the place you go worship, the place you sing, the place you get the word. I mean, the word, we cannot unify ourselves on the word church. But so the question has to become, when did the word church pass through culture and get misinterpreted? Now, I've got to send out a warrant for your intelligent arrest before we even get started today. Because my assignment today requires that I be a little top-heavy in teaching before I get into it. So don't worry. I'm not going to ask you to tap your neighbor not one time in the whole message. That ain't what I do. Okay. But I got to teach you. Is that all right? Okay. So the question becomes, how did church get misinterpreted? Like, when is the first time we find the word church? We find the word church in Matthew chapter 16, verse number 13. It is the very first time we hear the word church in our New Testament Bible. All right, so I told you I was born in 2 different worlds, so I can't even tell you the scripture without kicking it to your ghetto gospel. Okay, so I got to go ghetto gospel for a second. Jesus is walking with his partners, and he's walking through an area called Caesarea Phillipi. It's the hood. I mean, it's nasty, nasty. I'm talking about you wouldn't put your purse down. You wouldn't do nothing. Caesarea Phillipi was so nasty that people would take their babies, literally, and cut them into pieces and offer up sacrifices. There would be orgy parties going on. Because when a person could not give birth, they used to worship the fertility god. So you would have orgy parties because you couldn't have a baby in the neighborhood. Orgies would take place to announce and to celebrate and worship the god of fertility. This is how nasty Caesarea Phillipi is. You follow me? So imagine, then they had this huge cobblestone area, like a building with windows, that they would take all these marred and dead bodies and animal sacrifices, throw it in there, leave the window open for the spirit to be released from it. So imagine the smell. And it is there that Jesus is walking through Caesarea Philippi. And he stops and hollers at his partners and say, yo, what they talking about? Who they say I am? Y'all excuse my vernacular. Who do they claim I am? He said, who do they say that I am? And they say, some said John the Baptist. Some of them say Elijah. Some of them say Jeremiah. He stopped and said, well, who do you say that I am? You've been rocking with me this long. Don't tell me what the gossip is. Tell me what you feel. Is it true? None of them could say a word. All of them quiet. And only Peter speaks up and say, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus responds, flesh and blood has not revealed that to you, but my Father who's in heaven. But here's the critical piece of what Jesus is saying. He's saying to Peter, I will not respond until I hear you echo what I already know about myself. True identity, you can't tell me who I am. You can only echo what I already know about me. He does not respond to you, Elijah, you, Jeremiah. No, he didn't even argue back and forth. It's a mute point in the text. But when Peter recognizes his identity, Jesus gives him his identity. Because this is how the church is birthed. The church is not birthed by you coming and finding your position, your place by a title. If you come here and you find your identity once you find the church, you're lost forever. It is when you find the identity of Jesus and learn the identity of who you are, then you understand what is my role and assignment to the church. I was already popping before I got here. So he didn't say, I come that you may have church and church more abundantly. He says that I come that you may have life. Oh, y'all know the Bible. My God. I come that you may have life and life more abundantly. So the first thing he gives me is an identity and gives me life. I take my life and my identity and invest it in the church, because church becomes a potluck that everybody brings the dish of what they are, and collectively we all eat off of it. Are y'all feeling me? So he says, this is where we find the words. And after he said, and I say to you that you are Peter, you are Petros, you are rock.
Yes, sir.
And upon this rock, upon the rock of your confession, yes, of what you know about Jesus, I will build my church. First time we hear it. First time we hear it. Now here's the thing. Church wasn't even a religious term when Jesus said it. It was something so common in culture that everybody in the culture, remember where I started? Everybody in the culture were used to hearing the word church. It was common to the culture. So when he says it, Anytime people were talking war, strategy, it was known as church. Ecclesia. Any gathering of people for a purpose was church. So if I was just going to kick it with you and talk about buying your land, church. It was church. Yes. It was nothing religious about it. It was nothing spiritual about it. So Jesus is now saying, I'm going to build something based on the identity of who I am and the identity of who you are, and it will be known as my church.
Yeah. So solid.
First time we hear it. But the question becomes, how did it pass through the culture and the word get misinterpreted?
Get watered down. Yeah.
All right, we got to do a history lesson in a couple seconds. Y'all still with me? Holler back at me, please. All right. I love you. 313 AD, a man by the name of Constantine, the Roman emperor.
Yes,
popular in its time. 313 AD. Constantine, the Roman emperor, he does not, at first, he stops Christian persecution, that you can no longer kill them. He stopped it where it was so bad to be a Christian that they could take your land and you had no rights. You were not a part of society. It would be equivalent to this. Let me bring it to cultural context. You couldn't draw Social Security. You couldn't buy a house because you couldn't get a loan. You got to pay for it cash. If you had a home, we could come and take it. You had no rights. So if I accuse you of anything, if you went to court, it's as if you wasn't even there. If you were a Christian, you literally could not connect to the Commonwealth. That's why Typhus started to create a new economy outside of the Roman Empire. Oh, man, this is good. So when this happens and Constantine stops persecution, now you can no longer kill Christians, and later on he would somewhat become Christian, as they would say. But the problem with Constantine is he brought with him all the things he likes about the other religions, mixed it with Christianity, and called it worship. So I enjoyed this part of worship in this religion, this part of worship in this religion, this part in this religion. Mix it together and worship the God of the universe. Energy. I know y'all hear where I'm going. To mix together, I like this part of Christianity now. I don't like that, Pastor James. I don't like when you're talking about that now. That part I don't like. That's what Constantine did, what we're doing now. He mixed a hybrid religion of all these ideas and concepts and feelings and merged it together and removed the discipline connected to Christianity and the idea of who Christ was. Jews were supposed to what day was Jews supposed to keep holy? The Sabbath. Constantine worshiped the sun god, which was Sunday, so he made it where they had to worship on Sunday. Oh, God. Oh, gosh. Oh, God. Okay. I'm in history lesson too long. So how did the word church then get misinterpreted throughout culture? Because the Roman Empire was the greatest influence of his time, just like how America influences everything. He started influencing other cultures, so now since the Roman Emperor is Christian, everybody now thinks it's cool to be Christian. They didn't know what they believed, and now whoever had money could buy a building. Well, Christianity was a movement from house to house. It was not a monument in a building. It was a movement. You can have it anywhere as long as you got two things, the identity of who Christ is and the identity of who you are. You could have church. So now him and all his rich partners, if you owned the building became church. And the first word we find interpreted from ecclesia was basilica, which means house of the Lord. In Roman culture, the word basilica means house of the Lord. It influenced Germany and Switzerland. And in Germany and Switzerland, we find the word Kirche. Kirche. Kirche.
Teach what?
So now we moved in the culture away from ecclesia in Caesarea Phillipi in a conversation with Jesus and his partners. And we moved in 313 AD to basilica. Now we've moved in 10 years later in Germany and in Switzerland to Kirche. Kirche means the meeting place. It is where we get our English and Latin interpretation in the scriptures, and it passed itself into America, and this is why we say, I'm going to church.
Yeah.
Because we have moved away from the ecclesia to the Kirche. All right, let me take my glasses off so I ain't even got to look at your face like that. I can't see you anyway, okay. Let me explain something to you. There are people who joined the Kirche, but they have never joined the ecclesia. As long as you meet here, I'm with you. Move where? Oh, no, I ain't going over there. That's too far from my house because I'm not a part of the ecclesia. I'm a part of The Kershi. The Kershi is the meeting place. The ecclesia is the gathering together of people for a purpose. The Kershi is the place. The ecclesia is a people for a purpose. All right. I used to be slow. Let me try one more time. The Kershi is the place. The ecclesia is the people and the purpose. So what we are battling even now is people who are part of the Kershi, but they have never joined the ecclesia. They don't know what they believe. They don't celebrate anything. All they know is the place. So let me tell you how you know people who are part of the Kershi. Because you hear things like, you went to church yesterday? Went to church. It becomes a location. It becomes a timeline from this time to that time. I cannot go to something that is a movement that I'm supposed to be a part of. It is a purpose. It is my DNA. As long as I am me, I take me wherever I go. Now, let me not muddle this up, because we got people who sit at the crib and say, we are the church. I got you too. Don't worry. Let's pop bottles together. Okay, so here's the problem with people who believe that. It does not become the ecclesia until it is the gathering of people for purpose. You are not. When he says, I say to you, you are Peter, and upon this rock. Peter, by yourself, you're not the ecclesia. You are the starting place of it. So bring you with other people who believe for this purpose together, and you become the ecclesia. Y'all got that? Okay, so I got to move. The question becomes, now that we've now you see where church has now moved from first century when Jesus said it in Caesarea Phillipi. It is